Yes, sure.
Calm down.
Good evening, everybody.
Evening.
I'd like to call to order the April 1st, 2025 Londonderry Utilities Committee meeting. We'll start by saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So thank you all for coming out tonight. Just a one quick course of business before we get too far. Our bylaws say that we elect officers in the first meeting after the March election.
I'd like to make a motion to keep our current officers, Lynn, Martha, and John. I think they've done a great job. I think they've served us all well. If they're still willing to serve, I think they'd be great. You know, I've learned a lot from all three of them, and I've actually learned a hell of a lot more from Martha, no offense, Lynn, from Martha and John being the subcommittee head in the water committee,
Sure.
and I've enjoyed working with them. That's what I think.
Well, thank you. I'm more than willing to serve again.
Yep, as am I.
Yeah.
Yeah. An enthusiastic thumbs up.
Wow.
I will second that motion.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Do we have any other nominations?
Move to accept the slate by acclamation.
So, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? And that carries unanimously. So, thank you all.
Thank you.
We're looking forward to a good 2025, and I think we're in a good position to do a lot of good work, so. Next on our agenda is public comment. We have,
Do we have enough? You reassigned people already?
oh, you are, yes, thank you for keeping me honest. So we are missing one full-time member tonight, Paul Ramsey, so I'm going to appoint John to vote for Paul. Actually,
And Ann.
two, Ann's out, so Ray, you're voting for Ann, okay? And so that gives us seven voting members.
We assigned Doug to anything?
I know, you just said that.
Yeah.
You missed that. Hey
Yeah.
Doug, what do you want to volunteer for?
Yeah, so be nice to Doug. Doug's our visitor tonight, so we have to be nice to Doug. So next on our list is public comment. We have nobody from the public here, so we'll move on. Joining us tonight is Doug Thomas. Doug is an esteemed guest tonight. He's here to talk a little bit about some activities happening up in Concord that affect us and affect the town. And Doug, if you'd like to just tell us a little bit about you, your committee, and what's happening, and then we'll open it up to questions after that.
Okay, sure. Well, I guess I'm no stranger to speaking in a podium, but,
You
you
could
know,
sit if you'd like.
oh, good. Fine.
More comfortable.
Oh, good. And the mic's on, right? All right. So yes, I'm Doug Thomas. I'm one of the 7.5 state reps we have here in town, and I'm on the Science, Technology, and Energy Committee, although I affectionately want to refer it to the Committee of Energy, Science, and sometimes Tech, because most of our bills happen to deal with energy in the last 12 years. So anyway, I'm the vice chair, and the chair is Representative Michael Vose. He is out of Epping. We both came into the House the same year, so we have the same time in service. And so the Committee on Energy, Science, and Tech deals primarily with science or technology questions, and the energy involving energy, how it's produced, how it's managed, the Public Utilities Commission, Department of Energy, and so forth. And any information having to do with air quality comes to our committee as well. Anything having to do with ground or water, as you know, Representative Dunn his committee would be handling that. So that's how we function there. We have a 18-person committee, and so this year has been a little bit unusual year in terms of what we have for bills. In the past, we've had a lot of bills involving how we're going to manage the net metering program, the RPS program, and all those programs there. This year, we've had a few bills on those issues here, but we've really had some bills that a lot of mishmash, a lot of having to do with how we want to organize the Public Utilities Commission, and a few things that the Department of Energy might want to take over as duties. I would say that the main thrust of what we're doing this year, and not sure how it's going to continue into next year, because next year will be new bills, but the main thrust this year has been focused on nuclear energy. And we've submitted several bills that are promoting nuclear energy. Not that it's going to happen next year or the year after or even perhaps in the next 5 years, but it's an attempt to open the state up into the idea that new modern technology, nuclear energy, particularly small-scale nuclear reactors, is safer, clean, zero carbon dioxide, and is something that we would be open to doing. So we've been putting some things into regulation that would tell potential investors that, hey, New Hampshire, is open. If you think there's a market here, you come here, and at least we are sending out messages. For instance, one of my bills, I think it's Bill HB 189, basically puts into definition for the state in their general definition category of RSA, the definition of clean energy now will include nuclear energy as part of the definition of clean energy, obviously because it's clean. And so that passed the House in flying colors. In fact, I'm talking about it in front of the Senate on Thursday, and it should pass on that. And we've had, there were two bills coming up this week, one today and one Thursday, that passed the House and will be brought before the Senate. And basically, it would allow utilities to invest up to 20% of the power it generates from nuclear energy, which it's not that they would own it. It's just that if they're going to buy energy, it would say that that they can contract into long-term contracts to up to 20% into coming from nuclear energy, even from outside the state. As you know, we have one reactor in the state, Seabrook, and it produces. It's on all the time except for maintenance issues. I should say scheduled maintenance issues, and it's running all the time. Unfortunately, had we had two reactors, I don't think we'd have a lot of problems we have now running around here. But that's water over the dam, and so we have one reactor, and it's running all the time. That's the highest producing generator we have in the state. The second highest producer of energy we have in the state is right here in town, what used to be the Calpine. I forget what they call it now. The natural gas power plant. So those two produce a lot of energy, and we feed it into the grid. We have a bill that I think will produce some interesting results. We're going to turn it into not a study committee per se, but we're directing the Department of Energy into studying the pros and cons of what would happen if New Hampshire was to disassociate itself from the ISO New England grid. I have my own opinions on that, but we believe that in the process of doing the study, and they can look at the studies that Maine has done. They did a study, and Maine decided it was just not economically possible. But I think that by doing a study for within the state, I think they can come up with some interesting data that might help us in future endeavors, even if they say, hey, there's no way you can devise this, it just wouldn't happen. But I think in the process of doing a study, they would probably come up with some good information that we can use down the line. We've had our focus from our side is we don't want to pass any policies that would ultimately result in people's electric bills going up. And so efforts to increase subsidies on, say, net metering or the RPS program, we tend to shy away from because ultimately those costs are passed through from the utilities on into the ratepayer, and that's something we don't want to see. RPS program, Renewable Portfolio Standard. Yeah, I'm not going to explain what it is because it goes on into great depth, but it does result into credits and payments, and those credits and payments that the utility could pay out ultimately gets into the ratepayers area. And what we're trying to do right now is we're trying to give back some money to the ratepayers from the RPS. Whether it passes the Senate or not, we're not really sure on that. That is a big issue because a lot of money from there is used for weatherization, which is an effective way of efficientizing your homes. But at the same time, any effort that we can do to help reduce electricity bills to our people, we're all for that, however small it may be. One of the issues here is that there's very little that our committee can do directly to reduce the cost of electricity, because so much of it is controlled either at the federal level or through the market system. When this state and the surrounding New England states, when they divested themselves from the utilities directly owning generation, it put the cost of buying energy on the open market, and that fluctuates and changes. And the utilities by law, make no profit off of buying energy from whomever they want to buy it from. If it costs them $10, it costs you $10. They make no money that way. And that can sometimes run up to be 45% of your total bill. So we have no control over that. Many of the other programs, you've got distribution and transmission that you have to keep the lights on, and you have to maintain the wires. And those are costs that are driven by personnel, salaries and so forth. And maintaining that structure is costly. We do keep an eye on increases, and we want to make sure that the Public Utilities Commission, which does regulate and approve rate cases by the utilities, make sure that they have the policies in effect that will help them make good decisions, because they're the ones that decide on the rates. So we deal in those areas there. There is one thing I will mention before I get into some other things here is the path that we've chosen over the last 10 years on how we've become. We're very fiscally conservative when it comes to allowing programs to either expand that would maybe increase subsidies. And because of that, we know a report came out last year that if you look at the rate of increase in rates or electric bills, say from Massachusetts as opposed to us, New Hampshire had by far the lowest rate of increase of electricity in the entire New England area, and that can be attributed to the policies that we have adopted, or rather not adopted, because many of the other states have adopted policies that increase subsidies to renewable energy, and that's passed on to the ratepayers. And a report came out that I think New Hampshire was running about 30 or 40% lower rate increase. We still had increases, don't get me wrong. We still had increases, but the rate of increase was about 40 or 50% lower than Massachusetts, Connecticut, and so forth. Their states, they adopt policies that force them to buy more expensive energy, and more expensive infrastructure. At one time, a little background story, about 10 years ago, Massachusetts legislature had passed a bill saying that, well, our goal is to have, I forget what it was, 30, 40% renewable energy by a certain year. And they quickly found out that, that's too lofty of a goal. We can't meet that goal, so we'll just kind of, we'll go slower. The Massachusetts Supreme Court said, you passed a law that said your goal was this, you must meet that goal. That's why Massachusetts is scurrying right now. They're trying to get every other state involved in giving them that type of energy so they can meet their goal. We shied away from passing a law with that type of goal in the state for that very reason. People would say it's only a goal, and we kept saying no, it won't, because the Supreme Court can say you have to meet it, and that will you know, make it so that you have to buy certain energy that's more expensive. So policies that we've adopted or not adopted, it was with that in mind. We're trying to keep the rates a lower rate of increase. That's just the way we feel. So that was a side story. I don't know, that kind of sums up the general thing of what we're doing this year. We had 44 bills. I can't possibly remember them by number or anything. A lot of them we didn't pass, but if you have any specific questions, or I can just go through my list and look at any of the ones that we passed that I think are important, I could bring them as well. So I'm not
Some
sure
of the
what-
ones on the community aggregate.
Oh, yes,
aggregation
that
they
one
wanted you
there,
to talk
that's
about, if
the
you could discuss.
760,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
That one is very important to the people that receive payments from the community power. The issue behind that is the PUC came out with a docket that required, in this case, Eversource, to purchase, I think it was 30% of its power on the spot market. That means utilities normally, at Eversource anyway, every 6 months they will contract for energy. And whatever the price it is at that 6-month period, that's what you pay, that's what everyone pays. If you buy it on the spot market, you can buy it almost daily. It fluctuates up and down. But some studies have said that in the end, in the long run, it doesn't make a big difference. Others say you might save some money, we're not sure. So, but the issue is that the PUC directed Eversource to buy 30% of its power on the spot market. As you buy money on the spot market, as you buy energy on the spot market, some days it's going to be higher price, some days it's going to be lower price. In the aggregate, if it costs Eversource more money than it would have cost them had they bought it at the 6-month period, that's an overage, and that money is owed to them by way of ratepayers.
Say that again, sorry.
If you buy the money on the spot market and it costs them more than what they had budgeted for, or because it's like buying commodities, really. So if they spend more than they would have spent, they need to recoup that money they spent because it costs them more. If it costs them less, then they don't, then they.
So if it costs
they
more,
make out.
the
It-
customer's
it-
paid, and if it costs less.
On
the
a
cost-
daily basis, it can cost more or less if you buy it on the spot market. It depends on when you buy it and how much you buy. It's a very complicated process, but the thing behind that is that the PUC directed them to buy 30% on the spot market. So 30% is on the spot. The rest of the money of the energy they buy is at the 6-month period. When 6 months comes along, like we saw, recently, you're not paying a whole lot of money right now for your default service here because it was cheaper than it was the previous year. So if it turns out that they are owed money, that money is spread across all of the ratepayers through the rate bill. The issue with 760, I know it's hard to describe.
So can I try to repeat what I think I'm hearing? Because it doesn't make sense to me. So I apologize for being obtuse. So they have a price they get on the 6-month contract, but they have to buy 30% on the spot market.
Right.
If the spot market price goes higher than the 6%, they are allowed to pass that cost to the consumer.
Yes, because
Okay.
it's because
That makes sense.
because it goes over their.
Sure. If the price is below, do they get to pocket the difference?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm not with that area, so I really don't know what happens directly. But in reference to HB 760, what 760 is trying to say is people that are on community power, they don't buy their energy on the spot market, right? And they shouldn't be subjected to being charged for people that are on the default,
Sure.
price. there's pros and cons to that. It sounds like a fairness question, which it could be. On the other end, if 760 were to pass, there's the fear that so many people would go over to the community power because they wouldn't be getting those rate increases from the utility, that the default service might go away. If the default service goes away, people that don't want to be on the community power, they don't have any avenue. The default service is gone because it's not paying for itself, okay? So the issue is, what do we do? And right now, there's a docket that the PUC is looking at to address that issue. And so we felt that it would not be prudent to act on that bill now while the PUC was having public comment on that subject matter. So we tabled the bill that it can be revised if needed, or even brought back next year until we see what the PUC does. We think the PUC will probably come up with a decision by I'm thinking May or so. So that's where we are with 760. I know I'm probably not explaining it as in depth as makes sense, but again, these programs are extremely complex, and it's
It just seems, excuse me, it just seems that, that it's very questionable as to how much advantage it could be to the consumer. It's almost built in that if, for some reason, the utility has to pay more on the market to get that, that they got a way of recovering it, which is just put it back on the consumer.
Yeah, and they have no incentive to get the best price either. Yeah, it sounds,
Actually, they have an incentive.
Actually do.
Spend less.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
They
They can undercut all of the aggregated communities because it's no skin off their nose, they're gonna get it back.
Yeah. That's
Right,
Bill
right.
760, you said?
760, right?
Okay.
So that's on the table right now, and so I personally feel there should always be a default service available out there for people that still want it. So we want to make sure that we don't do anything that would make it go away. But again, how we do that, I don't know. I want to find out what the PUC comes up with, because they're the ones that are the adjudicative body. So
Doug, do you have any idea what the percentage of the population is in the state that's on using the default service versus using community power?
no, as you know, community power is a kind of a growing thing right now. I would say that buyer beware. Nothing is a panacea. I know for a fact that Epping recently entered into a type of community power, and right now they are paying more than the default service. It's almost like buying commodities, right? You win some, you lose some. So in the end, I don't know. I mean, how much money would you save after 10 years? I don't know. I mean, it's too new to find out. I do know that there's a strong effort out there to break away a lot of barriers to the aggregate power people, and we want to make sure that whatever is done is not done to the detriment of anyone that still wants default power.
Sure.
Unfortunately, you you still have power lines, you still have transmissions, another issue, but you still have power lines and poles. They have to be maintained, and if a company isn't going to make money, either they go bankrupt or they sell it out to someone else. But bad things happen. So again, this is the world we're in with the
Sure.
with what we've done. There are people on my committee that could probably explain this a whole lot better, because that's what they focus on. But the crux of it is that we're waiting to see what happens with the PUC, just to be certain that we don't enact something now that goes against what they come up with.
Yeah, I'm sure you're aware, we have I don't want to say an active aggregation program here in town, because we haven't pulled the trigger to implement it yet, but one of our guiding principles has been we're not going to implement the program if it's going to cost the consumer any money.
Again,
And so we've just been kind of in a holding pattern, and I think,
anybody here in the market of buying commodities?
yeah,
I mean, It could be. It sounds good. That's why I say buyer beware. It may be less expensive in the long run. How much expensive, don't know. If there's a major downturn in people that companies that feed the community power, they may not be able to get the big rates, and so that may go up for a while. I don't know. It's they claim it's going to be cheaper. I would say it's going to be up to the town to decide.
I think we have to realize, and by the way, I'm no expert on this, but I think we have to realize that we're dealing with the big guys, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Whether we're talking about Eversource, or we're talking about Unitil, whoever we're talking about, these are the big guys. They're the experts in the field, and they're in the business of making money, which they're entitled to. They're also providing a vital service. But it just seems to me that, we're talking about clean energy, or we're trying to move in that direction. And we have a lot of hydropower going through the town, the state of New Hampshire. I'm not sure who's in control of that. Pretty much a lot of it is owned or run by large companies, power companies, in some cases companies out of this country, meaning Canada. I just wish we had a little more control over hydropower in the state of New Hampshire.
Well, I wish we had Northern Pass, but that didn't materialize.
Well, that's Canadian. No, I'm talking about hydropower in the state of New Hampshire.
Oh, we're not going to get the degree of hydropower that we can get from Canada, because the only other hydropower we have in the state is from small dams, and we have many small dams, but they don't generate a whole lot, and they're barely being able to be kept open right now because of the market. But Ron, you might be able to talk to that as well. I mean, Moore Dam is the largest dam we have in the state, and much to my chagrin, I always thought that hydropower was always there. I mean, it's always running. It's there. Then I found out that, well, no, not really, because there's only a certain amount of water you can let through that dam, and then you're going to have to stop, so the dam doesn't get empty. So it's not as continuously running as I thought it might be, but it is clean, and I do support that. And hydropower is good. We could have had 1,200 megawatts more coming out of Northern Pass, but that didn't happen. And there probably won't be another project like that, because it costs them too much money to try and get it approved, and so the Eversource won't do it again. The problem with getting hydropower from Canada, as you know, they can shut it off anytime they want. And they've threatened to do that, and they have done it in times of emergency. When they have a severe emergency, they're not going to sell us power because they need it. So we can't rely on it all the time, but it is a good source of power to have on a normal basis. But our small dams here, they produce very, very little power.
Are we not buying power from Canada now? Not me, not us, but the utility companies.
Well,
buying
yes.
hydropower from Canada right now.
I can't say that I know for sure, but I would be shocked if they didn't, because it's power coming into the state. It's coming into the grid, and who sells that power directly or how they buy it from, I don't know that, but it's you know what I mean.
Well, yeah.
I mean, Eversource is going to buy power from their wholesalers, and I don't know who their wholesalers are, to be quite frank. I know they can buy power on the wholesale market for around 4 cents a kilowatt hour. I know for a fact that if they give credit to people that have solar cells on their homes, they're paying almost 12 cents a kilowatt hour, and that money is passed on to all the ratepayers in the form of their stranded costs. So they because it's a cost of doing business, right? So they by state law and by PUC, I don't know the exact amount, but I think it's around 12 cents a kilowatt hour. I could be off by a penny or two, but anyone that produces solar is being credited about 12 cents a kilowatt hour, and that, as opposed to 4 cents that they could buy on the wholesale market. But that was a state policy that they passed years ago. And so that much money there, everybody, whether you own solar or not, you're paying for that as well. So, and those are the issues that we look at when people want to say, hey, we want to increase the amount of rebates, or we want to have them pay maybe 15 or 16 cents a kilowatt hour. We say, well, why? You're making other people's bills go up higher when you do that. And those are the types of things that we look at. Any policy that would enable that. And that goes back to the limit that we have right now, except for municipalities, which is a 5 megawatt limit. But for private, it's 1 megawatt label power is what you qualify for to get your credits from solar power. Anything over that, if you have more solar panels, you can have all the solar panels you want, you just won't get net metering for it. Only up to 1 megawatt. Nothing prevents you from putting more panels anywhere. Nothing. It's just that you won't get the extra subsidy if you go over 1 megawatt. And there have been moves to increase that to 2 or 3 megawatts. And we say, well, if you do that, that's more money that the utilities are going to put back into their cost of living, and it gets put into their rate case. And so everyone pays for that increase, whether they have it or not. So we look at those issues.
But if a utility puts in their own solar farm that is being done now in Kingston, do they get a credit for solar power?
That's an interesting question. I'm aware of that project. I don't know what the specifics of how it's going to be managed is, because I'm not aware of. That would be, is that Unitil? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if that's a pilot program or not. I don't know.
yeah. Well,
I'm not going to
certainly-
give you an answer
certainly
that I just don't know.
They're doing it for a reason. There's going to be some kind of benefit for them. Maybe they're looking to be a good neighbor,
Yeah,
perhaps.
I don't know. Ron, do you know anything about that at all?
You know,
Yeah.
You're not familiar?
I do not. I know about it, but I don't know enough details.
I know they had the
explain
ground,
Yeah.
the ceremony for it,
Yeah.
and everything, and I don't know if they directly own it or what. That I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I know-
Unitil doesn't come before a committee very often, so I don't
Yeah.
hear much about that.
I got back off. I got way too many questions.
Yeah. Is there any other specific area that I can look up for you?
You mentioned the.
We have a lot of ITLs here.
Yeah.
You mentioned the work that you're doing on nuclear. Is there any, I did a quick search. There doesn't look like there's any nuclear systems under licensing review for New Hampshire at this moment.
Oh, no. The
But is there,
Eversource just had their license renewed for the next, I don't know, 25, 50 years,
right,
something
right,
like that.
Sebring?
Seabrook.
Seabrook.
Yeah, but there's no one. There's a couple of companies. They've come to us and said, hey, we build parts to small scale nuclear reactors. So there's one company in Manchester that does that, but there's nothing being built here. And I think there's one type of small scale nuclear technology that's being built elsewhere in the country, more like a pilot program. They're still expensive to build. They're far safer, and they use far less fuel. But at last count, they had over 80 different technologies that could be put for small scale nuclear. Right now, molten salt seems to be one that seems to be gaining traction. I'm aware of some technologies where they actually use spent nuclear fuel to generate more power. But again, cost and I know the Air Force entered into a contract about a couple of years ago up in Alaska to get a small-scale nuclear up there. I am going to my annual conference I go to. It happens to be in Boston this year. And we are on an energy track where they talk about the status of small-scale nuclear. And I might hear more about that because people are always willing to come and brag about what they're building. But
Alumni Ventures guys in Manchester, they're doing some investments in nuclear power. You might reach out to some of the guys there and as a state rep.
right. Well, there is one company that I have his name and address. He emails me frequently and about he even came to our committee one time. I'm not sure if it's the same person that you're
Probably
thinking of?
Jeremy Hitchcock. He's invested in a nuclear company here in the state, and it's being, I believe it's being run by a Navy, or ex-Navy nuke.
Right.
But
This whole idea is, in terms of this country, has been relatively new in the idea. You know, up until about maybe 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, nuclear was a dirty word. But there's more and more people, more and more bipartisan people that are no longer afraid to use the word nuclear. We get a lot of bipartisan support to promote the idea of small-scale nuclear in the state. Now, a lot of us know that it may never happen in the state for other reasons. I mean, nuclear or not, people don't want to see something in their backyard. People, it's all types of reasons. It's one reason why the pipeline didn't get built. It's one reason why Northern Pass didn't get built. But the idea of promoting it and putting it into statute and telling people that we are open to the idea of it is the focus of this year. It's like a small building block. It may happen. One of the ideas of northern New Hampshire might benefit from having a data center up there. A data center might want to have something like a small-scale nuclear right next to it. It doesn't even have to be hooked up to the grid. In fact, one of the bills that we talked about today at the Senate enables generators to function without tying to the grid. Now, there's some concerns that Eversource has, naturally, and we will address those. But the idea is, if you want to build a generator of power and you want to hook it up to a business directly, and you don't, not even backup power, you want in no way to be hooked up to the grid whatsoever, but you can supply power directly to this business. Why not? So this bill enables that.
There's no law against it. By the way,
Well, actually, the bill basically says that that type of facility would not be subject to PUC regulations, except it would be subject to SEC because of siting reasons, right? And things like that. And of course, safety things would have to be adhered to. But it takes away a lot of the bureaucracy of getting the PUC involved with rate cases and things like that. I know Eversource is concerned about, well, we don't want that to cross any highways and transmission lines and things like that, but there are ways that we can ensure that
so
that doesn't happen.
I applaud you for what you guys did for moving that bill. Not only that, you took and gave them an incentive for investors where the 20% thing you added on. That was
Exactly.
very smart. As you know, I'm in technology for most of my career. I spent a lot of it in Europe, and it was really sad to see what the developed nations were doing over in the EU. They were rapidly deploying, they call them regens. They're the nuclear reactors that use the fuel one direction and reverse it using the other. And that's even older technology now because they can now do super plutonium. But, which is, as you mentioned, if I see it, I'm afraid of it. Well, what they don't see is what the pollution and all the other stuff that you do, generating gas, coal, whatever. It's much worse than what people are afraid of. That's what kind of scares me.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you one. I went to a couple of colleges. One was Wentworth College. We had our own atomic power plant. When we had the blackout in '86, when the Eastern Coast went dark, there was this little building all lit up, the whole campus, because half the campus was DC. That's how old it
Yeah,
is.
well, my alma mater, what used to be called Lowell Tech, now UMass Lowell, has your reactor, was right next to the building I had classes in.
It was next to the library building, I think.
Yeah, well, it was.
It was the library building, but that was another. There's like 5 or 6 others that people do not know about, which is like, if you don't know about it, it's okay. But anyways, I applaud you guys for doing that. I hope it gets some traction.
Yeah.
I think it's very important, and the reason why is, if the Alcoa does come back to the U.S., if U.S. Semiconductor pulls back out of China and goes back to Boise, Idaho, they need about a small city's worth of electricity just to run them. Never mind the EV charging stations, which Eversource limits you. You can't go out and buy a fleet of 20 trucks. They just
Right.
can't supply it.
Yeah,
So,
and that's our intent is to we're laying the first cornerstone right now to get
Congratulations,
people
that's
back into the idea that this is something we want to be doing when the time comes.
Right.
And if we do our regulations now saying that we're open to this and are in one of the states that are in the forefront, then as investors begin to look, they just might see us and say, first of all, is there a market for it? That's the first thing. But, and we were slow to come out of the gate because, well, about 3 terms ago, I was in my 3rd term, and the chair of our committee for those 2 years was the chief litigator against Seabrook. And you could not even say the word nuclear in committee and not have him, shudder. And so we kind of had to overcome that. But the good news is, as technology is becoming better on the small scale, even though it's still expensive,
I'm hoping out people like you.
It's possible.
Stuff are becoming more technically astute and not passing laws outside of their knowledge of what technology is about. That's what I think what you guys have learned. Oh my God, it's not so bad.
that's a good statement.
What's that?
I said that's a good statement. We try. But it's difficult to know all that stuff, we. Anyway, let me see if there's something else that might be of interest that we passed.
And a lot of people don't understand, like, Eversource is asking for a transmission rate increase, which is about $250 per.
That comes through
separate.
FERC or ISO New England, really.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but that's separate. People understand there's delivery and then there's a cost of energy, which with nuclear, once you load a nuclear power plant, you're probably set for 10 years for the fixed cost. The new plants.
Oh,
for
the new
10
ones, the
years.
little ones? Yeah.
10 years, all the submarines have it, by the way,
That's the fuel cycle?
the fuel
time?
cycle.
Yeah. Because the big ones are like 18 months, or at least ours was when I was working in a
That's-
plant, yeah.
So you do the super enriched, it's a lot more expensive, but it lasts a lot longer.
Yeah.
So,
We had so many bills that we didn't pass, it's hard to find. So, for instance, some of the minor bills that we passed that made good sense is, we now allow, or if the Senate passes it, we would allow the PUC now to, I guess through your hardline telephone service, you have a lifeline capability, like if somebody wants to install a phone, that helps the handicapped or provides direct service. We're not talking about 911, we're talking about what they call lifeline services. The law didn't allow that to be installed onto mobile phones. And so our bill would allow that to happen on mobile phones. Yeah. Bills like that we have, which kind of makes sense, really. God, there's so many. Everything I'm looking at here is we didn't pass. A lot of what is, we talked about, Lynn, you're concerned about that 450 bill? We failed 450 because a similar bill from the Senate, which was SB 4, took that over, and it was what we call a fast-tracked bill. The governor wanted it, everybody wanted it, and so ordinarily we wouldn't see a Senate bill until maybe next week, but instead we saw it like a month and a half ago, and it's has something to do with housing. Best way I can explain it is it allows, if you do weatherization work on a house, and it costs a lot of money. Instead of taking out a loan to get this work done, the loan is with the person who owns the house. If the person moves, the loan goes with the person, right? The person signs the bill. He's owed that. A lot of developers aren't willing to take on that expense, This bill, in theory, would allow municipalities to assume that loan in the form of property tax, in which the loan goes with the property. So if the person moves, the banks will still get their money because it's tied to the towns that agree to take out that loan because they attach it to their property tax. So the banks are going to get their money. So the banks will be more willing to make loans to build these houses that are more efficient. It's an enabling bill. So towns would have to adopt it if they wanted to.
Any-
I haven't heard of that issue here in town, but apparently some towns felt it was to their advantage to have it, and I guess the governor felt it was to the advantage. It was a very hot bill. Everybody seemed to want it, so it came through our committee. Why? I don't know. We don't deal in loans, but because it was weatherization, they put it through our committee, but we got enough information from other people. We even asked ourselves, what does this do? What does it mean? Because we're not loaners, right? But we now understand it enough to explain it just about the way I did. I could be off by a few technicalities, but essentially, it's something that's there if the town wants it, if they need it. So that's what 450 was about. But since SB 4 took it over, we put 450 aside.
So I know that was in the news cycle, what, maybe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago?
Right.
For a few days, and I thought it was being sold kind of to improve energy efficiency throughout the state, but also to kind of touch a little bit on affordability as well.
Right. Right.
Housing
It's always tied to the banks, right?
Yep.
The banks want their money. If they think it's a high risk, they're not going to loan it. Therefore, you don't get anything built, right?
Was this about
Follow money.
new construction?
I think it was new. I think it was new construction, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah, because you mentioned about more efficient energy saving. I mean, that reminds me of like New Hampshire Saves, which is something the utility company
Right. Right.
runs, which
Well, New Hampshire Saves
is
is
paid for by the consumer.
right because New Hampshire Saves is paid for by your system's benefit charge,
Right.
which is a bill that we addressed to the Senate today. It has a lot of opposition to it because when the PUC, by state law, the PUC is forced to use one test and one test over only, called the Granite State test, to determine if someone qualifies for weatherization. And this test was adopted and promoted by the legislature, I don't know, several years ago. And this bill would have given the PUC the option to, if they felt that it was necessary, like if times change, if things become modernized or something, it would have given them the option to seek out either changes to the test or a different test to use to determine how much money would be in the weatherization fund, the energy efficiency fund, how it's calculated. There's opposition to that because people feel that the legislature should be involved in dictating what test the PUC should use to determine that. And so that was one of the bills that we discussed today. There was a lot of opposition to it, not unsurprisingly, from all the companies that deal in energy efficiency. They were all against the bill because they felt that it might take away, that the money pot might become less, and so they wouldn't get as much business, which is understandable why they'd be opposed to it. But that was another bill that we discussed today. Most of what I've said today is what we've covered this year. I mean, it's I'm looking. I see tabling and ITLs, which means the bill failed. Walker, there is. All right, the other subject I will address, I guess to my peril, is two bills that involve offshore wind, and one bill merely it dissolves the Commission of Offshore Wind and Port Development, which I'm on. It dissolved that commission, and Senator Waters, who's in charge of that commission, doesn't have a problem with that, by the way. I spoke to him today. But it dissolves the commission, and it takes the Office of Offshore Wind as a separate department and moves it into the Office of Innovative Energy for the Department of Energy. So the functions will no longer be separate. They will be assumed by the Innovative Energy Office. So that should not be a huge problem. It's just the fact that we're not doing any offshore wind here, and why have a separate department for it, manned by several people? Let DOE assume that efficiency. The other bill is a resolution, really, and it's a resolution that I put forward because I listened to the New Hampshire fishermen, and the New Hampshire fishermen had some concerns about the offshore wind project that was being proposed in the Gulf of Maine, which happens to be floating offshore wind. There's only one other area in the world I'm aware of that has a floating offshore wind. The one in Rhode Island is all dug into the bed. Can't do that in the Gulf of Maine because the water's too deep. So they were proposing floating offshore windmills. Now, a lot of companies have withdrawn from their offshore. They in the Jersey, New York area, there are a lot of companies. Several companies were willing to pay millions of dollars in fines to get out of their contract because they realized it was going to cost them too much money to build it. Offshore wind does not have a immediate future, I don't think. Costs alone, and it's not just building them; it's the cost of transmission. We know for a fact that the offshore wind in Rhode Island right now is producing energy at a higher rate than they had expected it to, so people are paying more for that electricity right now. But the issue that they had up in the Gulf of Maine was the fishermen had questions about how it was going to affect everything, and they were not getting any answers. And a couple of the major things they had concerns with is wind turbines. Well, besides wind turbines being toxic, if a blade breaks like it did down south, those blades are toxic and they spread in the water. Whether windmills actually disturb mammal life in the ocean, I don't know. People claim it does. Some say it doesn't. That I don't know. But the issue with windmills is as they produce power through their cables produce heat as it travels through the cable. And this heat has to be converted and cooled down through cooling stations in the water. You can't have them on top, obviously. They're cooling stations. And cooling stations cool down the water. And to help with that and to protect the equipment, they're also chlorinated. So what happens is that you get hundreds of thousands of gallons of warmed, chlorinated water pushed back into the ocean every day as it passes through there. That was one concern the fishermen had. How does it affect marine life and so forth? The other concern were that the cables are attached to the bed. There's waves, right? The cables are constantly, although they're anchored down, they're constantly shifting and disturbing the bed. How does that affect planktons and the basic marine food life? Because they're concerned of how it affects their livelihood in terms of marine life. And they were getting no answers. They weren't getting any answers that made any sense whatsoever. Those are only part of the concern. The other concern, of course, I had was just the cost of it alone. It was still uncertain who was going to bear the cost of that. So basically, I put forth a resolution, it's called HCR 4. Whether the Senate adopts it or not, I don't know. But it's just a message that says, hey, New Hampshire, we don't want offshore wind in the Gulf of Maine until you answer these questions to our satisfaction, and only upon approval by the state legislature. And that's all this resolution says.
That gives us a 5-mile buffer, right?
You what?
A 5-mile buffer when you say offshore?
Oh, these are well out of sight. These are like, they're well out of sight of.
Here's my question, I should rephrase that. Now that, if it passes, what is our regulatory authority? How far out to the ocean can we go?
That's why it's a regulation, because we can't tell the federal government what to put in federal waters. So,
No, how about private industry to put in federal,
well, what
waters, what we're gonna call them?
all New Hampshire is saying, or all this thing would be saying, is that we don't want it until these questions are answered. You want to still build it? You can still build it. We're saying we don't want it for these reasons.
So you might want to reword to say, if you do build it, we're not buying it.
Yeah, you know,
I'm
there
serious. I mean,
actually
I'm
there.
not buying the power.
There was a bill that would have prevented any offshore wind material from actually reaching New Hampshire shores. And that's a bill that could have been enforced because it's in our purview. We don't want your cables or your stations on our soil, right?
That's what I was saying, yeah.
My committee elected to not pass that bill because we felt it went too far. We did not want to shut the door, put the seal of vault on it by that method, because we want to keep the option open in case technology changes or in case some things happen. So that's why we didn't pass that bill. But my bill is only a resolution that says, hey, we don't really want it. You're not welcome, okay? But it's like one of your relatives. You may not welcome them to come, but they're going to come anyway, right? You know, but you're just not welcome. But the reason behind it is to protect the fishermen because they had valid concerns. There are a lot of other items I had put in the resolution as well, and of course the opposition feels that we're worrying too much. But you know, I did some research and there's that's called the New England Fishermen's Stewardship Association, run by Mr. Lehman, and he's been on TV and he's been all over, and he has videos out there. If you look up that association, you'll see that there are some videos put out, and he poses those same questions. He says we're not saying never. Fishermen are not saying never ever. What we are saying is we don't know how it's going to affect our livelihood. You're not answering questions. Who knows? In my speech, I said the fishermen know the waters out there better than any other federal bureaucracy. They know the waters.
Good questions, because when they built Pilgrim and Seabrook, they had all those questions about how's the cooling, because they use offshore cooling, they put the water back and forth, and supposedly it was not going to affect anything. Well, later on, they found out it did change the water temperature by almost 10 degrees. It actually increased the population of fish and everything around those cooling pipes. But the answer to that is that good or bad? They could not answer while the people were asking the questions, would it make a change? And the answer now is, yes, it does make a change. I'll let the biologist tell you if that's good or if that's bad.
Yeah. So you know, and those are the types of things we work with. I know that. I was going to say I kind of lost my thought, but yeah, I'm not sure what
There's
else.
too many
But that's about it. What I,
Too many answered questions.
too many
before you
unanswered.
move
That's basically what
forward.
it says. Too many unanswered questions.
Yeah.
You have to give us answers, and until you answer them to our satisfaction and verified, we don't want it. Unfortunately, it's only a resolution. It bears no weight. It sends a message out, though. It sends a message that this is why we don't want it. But one of the things that is an indicator is that project recently. It's kind of crazy how they do it. They go out for bid for companies to win the bid to win the right to make a bid. It's really strange, but I think it was like some really nominal fee. It's like it was a $3 million bid. It was a very low bid by I think one or two companies to bid on the right to bid on building the project. It was so low, and that tells you that the companies are really not that interested in building that, especially the ones that just moved out of the ones down on the East Coast. It's the cost. It's just the cost, and we're hearing reports now that the offshore winds over in Europe, the floating one, they have problems too. I mean, you know, they're built to withstand 20, 30 foot swells, waves. But when you do that, the cables are still going to move, and how much disturbing the bed all the time. I mean, how does that affect things? We just don't know. You know, so you know that was our rationale behind that. That's the way we think. That's the way my side thinks when we look at some of these bills here. So, like I said, this year's been kind of a mishmash of different bills. I've taken up a lot of your time. I'm willing to answer more questions, but
Wait a minute,
I think I'm out of ammunition here.
wait a
But
minute,
I can
got one more.
go ahead.
And that is, how much electricity is imported and exported from New Hampshire, okay?
Yeah.
How much do we shipping south to Massachusetts? How much are we bringing in from Canada? What percentage is there? I mean,
Well, I don't have a direct answer, but I can tell you that New Hampshire is an exporter of energy.
right, so we
produce more.
I'm sorry, we're not lacking for energy in the state of New Hampshire. And that's would be another reason why we don't necessarily need to be supporting offshore wind at this time, because we're not lacking energy in New Hampshire, I would suggest.
A lot of people that were supporting it thought about jobs and the fact that it would bring tax revenue into the towns and everything, but that's always the case, right? Jobs, 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 right?
Yeah, the gentleman from Portsmouth was very much in support of it.
Yes. Well, he would be.
Huh?
He would be, because they were going to be doing port
Right.
work there and,
Right.
and things like that. You know, surprisingly, we have discovered over the years that one of the biggest spenders of money against a lot of new power projects in the state is Seabrook. Competition.
Yep.
Owned by Florida Power and Light, or whatever. they
They're
call
owned by
themselves.
NextEra.
Huh?
They're owned by now. Seabrook is a very well-run station. Don't get me wrong; it's a very well-run station, very safe, very well-run. But it is owned by NextEra. NextEra is a huge energy company that owns a lot of renewable energy plants as well as other power plants. Anyway, so that was very interesting.
Mike, you had a question?
Well, yeah, two, actually. The easy one is, which agency is it that's not answering fishermen's questions?
Well, BOEM is one, BOEM,
Bureau of Ocean.
Bureau of Ocean
Management.
and Energy Management. Yeah,
So federal.
federal.
The
Oh
federal
yeah,
guy.
it's all federal because it's being done on federal water. And I think with the current administration, you're not going to see too much emphasis on offshore wind right now. Anyway.
Yeah, right. Might be part of why we're not getting any answers.
Well, this is like a year ago, so maybe I don't know, it's happens. I sat on that commission for a long time, always thinking that there was a fisherman rep on our committee. We found out the person claimed he was a fisherman's rep, but he really wasn't, and that's when all the fishermen came down and said, "Hey, wait a minute, we haven't been represented," and that's when all this stuff came out.
The other thing I wanted to ask about is a more general strategy type question. If I could extend your analogy about, you said, has anybody been in the commodities market? So if you could come up with a very long-term contract at a fixed price, even if it was a few cents per kilowatt hour more today, then it will, that it probably won't be, given the history of, energy prices in 20, 30, 40 years. It seems to me that works against your principle of making every action dependent on really the price of energy today, or, even in 6 months. So when you look at a proposal or a bill, it seems to me you've got to ask yourself, not just what's it gonna do to prices today, but is there a way that it's gonna help us in the long run? And I think that's why if states like Massachusetts took actions to, that resulted in a higher kilowatt hour price, then either they're crazy, they're irrational, or they're trying to accomplish something else. And I think that something else is they're trying to support a building up of the infrastructure for renewable energy, so that in the long run, they can have more nuclear too, but renewable energy that in the long run is going to, in terms of net present value, be a good return on investment. You see what I'm saying? You
Yeah.
can't just look at the here and now. You have to figure out what incentives can I put in place to create the infrastructure to give myself a better future.
We do look at that in a way. I know the lifespan of, take an example, solar panels can be as much as 40 years. Most of your PPAs are 20-year, long-term contracts. The rate of technology is changing so quickly that I oftentimes wonder, you put a lot of money into something right now, and let's say in 15 years, a new technology comes out, and now you're going to change again. You know, we see how fast things change. I've always told people that I favor a balanced approach to energy. I think we need everything that we can, that's reasonable. In this state, that wouldn't be coal or oil, but certainly natural gas, renewables, nuclear would all be in that mix, because that's, you know, we don't have enough natural gas here, which is one of the reasons why the prices are so high right now anyway. And that's short term. But in all honesty, the way we think is, you know, people are hurting now, and you know, you can think of long term. I can think of long term. The person paying their electric bill is saying, "What are they doing to me now? My rate is still going up," and so we're thinking about what we can do to alleviate some of the people's pain now. I know that there was a program put forth by the Consumer Advocate about 2 or 3 years ago or so, and he actually made the statement. Now, you have to understand how this statement sounds. He says, if we pass this program, trust me, the prices will go up in the next several years before they come down. And you look at the government is telling you, trust me, you're going to get charged a lot more money now, but you're going to pay less in the future. And I think, how many times does that come true? Don't know. I mean, it just, in theory, it sounds good, but does it ever really happen? And then the argument becomes, well, yes, they're paying more then, but the rate of increase was slowed. So, you know, it is a hard thing to look at. There's nothing right. See, here's the thing. There's nothing that prevents anyone from building more solar or even putting up a wind turbine if they pass SEC siting rules and everything. There's nothing that prevents it. What you hear about in the news when they say that, oh, they're preventing this from being built. No, we're not preventing it from being built. We're preventing the ratepayers from paying more subsidies into getting them being built. You can build up to 5 megawatts before FERC comes into the picture. You can build as many 5 megawatt windmills as you want, but you're not going to get net metering out of it. But you can build them. There's nothing that prevents you. And if the market, you know, if the market says that it's economical for you to build them and to get your money back, then you're going to build them. But if the market says it's not economical unless the government gives you subsidies, now that's an issue we have to think about, because you're using
That's a
taxpayer
risk,
money now.
Because look what happened in Maine,
You know?
right? Look what happened in Maine. They now have the highest electric rates because Maine decided to subsidize the whole solar thing, which on the surface looked really good, but they didn't realize how much it was gonna cost to build it, and it's
Yeah.
now, and it's mandatory, they have to buy it.
I'm glad you said that.
And I'm glad, some of the things you said about, let's make it optional, let's make it as, you know, when you start, you know, thinking that, oh, that was a good idea, let's make it mandatory, so they have to buy it, they now have the highest rates in the country.
Yeah, when you make something mandatory,
That's a problem.
there's a problem there somewhere, you know? Just like when someone says, oh, we want you to join this program, but everybody has to, you know, will automatically be opted in, and you have to petition to opt out.
Well, there's a good point in that,
You know.
is, on the water committee, subcommittee, we're asking the question, how do we convince investment into water pipelines in the town? We don't want to force the people, but then that restricts the revenue that a potential penny check could make, so we're trying to figure out how we're gonna.
Right. For a state that has no income tax, it's hard to give incentives by saying we're going to lower your tax. Yeah. So it's, you know, just as a side there, I don't know if, Lynn, you might be aware of this, but ISO New England has an app, and it tells you minute by minute how much energy is being used in New England. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, answer your question, I don't know the percentage. I mean, I can tell you right now that of the power being generated, 54% is coming from natural gas. Right now, 23% from nuclear, 13% from hydro, 10% by renewables, and less than 1% for coal and oil. That's like right now. That could
And
change
also-
in 5 minutes.
EIA has a lot of good data too. The Federal Energy Information Association.
Sure.
Or, yeah.
Administration.
Administration, is it? Yeah.
Is the Pilgrim nuclear plant still in operation?
No. Pilgrim is
So-
gone.
Huh?
Pilgrim is gone. There's only, best of my knowledge, there's only 2 nuclear plants left in New England. That's Seabrook and the one in Connecticut.
Connecticut, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what is the life expectancy of Seabrook now?
Well, they just got their license renewed, I think, for, I forget, it was 25 years or
25.
50 years.
25.
Long time. It's an old technology plant, but it's being run very well. It's in very good repair, very efficient. They've had minor issues. Every 18 months, they have to go down for a month or so to recharge the rods and everything, but that's normal. But there's no end in sight right now, thank goodness.
Have you looked at, didn't we a couple of years ago cut off offshore drilling or exploration? Have you looked at opening that up to see if we can bring some more fuel?
That's a
in?
federal thing, I think. We had nothing to do with that. Yeah.
And Doug's given us a lot of his time tonight, unless there's any other real pressing questions anybody has. Doug, anything we can do for you? If
I
there is-
enjoyed coming. I was just going to say, just to finish up my thought, of the 30% of renewables being used right now, 67% is coming from wind, 18% from refuge, 14% from wood, 2% from landfill gas. Obviously, it's nighttime, less than 1% from solar.
Yeah.
But that's, you know, and this changes like minute by minute. Sometimes there are other bills that come across other committees that might affect the town. If someone says, hey, this is going to affect Londonderry, and let's say it's going to go to some other committee, like, say, I don't know, education or something like that, and you're concerned about it, you can always contact any of us, me or anyone else, and say, hey, can you take a look at this bill and explain to us what it really does or something like that? Because I don't know. I look at the energy stuff or the ones where, say, leadership is their main focus because they put out newsletters, but I don't know every bill that's coming through. A lot of times we don't know about what's coming through until it's time to vote on it. And then we rely on the summaries and the reports that people put out and everything because, let's face it, we've had over 850 bills this year. And they're all, as Ron knows.
Yep.
Ron, you know every bill that comes across?
You can't possibly. You try your best,
Have you read every
but
bill?
there's 850 of them, and we got, 300 from the Senate? So,
And the Senate will always, whatever passes in the House is 100% guarantee that they will change it in some way, even if they pass it. Even if they pass, they'll change it in some way. 100%, absolutely.
as I
We're-
said to this committee before, most of the action happens in committees. That's why if you
Oh,
want to change a bill and have any impact, go to the committee hearings, because that's where it all happens.
Right, and we're very, I don't want to brag, but I do because it's Londonderry. We're very fortunate right now in this town because we have the president of the Senate, Sharon Carson, from this town. We have the Speaker of the House, Sharon, from this town, and we have a vice chair and a chair from this town as well, which is quite good for one town. So I have to make an appointment to speak to Sharon Carson, but I can speak to her, and when they know you by first name and they've known you for years, it's a lot easier to talk to them and say, how's the Senate going to do on this? What can we do to make it work, or things like that. And I know she has different viewpoints. I understand that, but it does help that people come from this town and that we're able to converse with them very, very freely. It's a lot better than if somebody lives up in Barstow or something.
Sure.
Doug, please do that, have that conversation with Sharon Carson.
Oh yeah, we did on a couple of things, but she's Sharon Carson. What can I say?
Well,
Well,
Would she be willing to come here too and talk to us?
Oh, I think
about-
she would be. Yeah, absolutely. If she's invited and you pick a day that she's able to come, I don't see why she wouldn't want to come at all. I mean, she's the Senate president, so she's not running any one committee now, but she can give you a feel for what's going on in the Senate in her way. I mean, I don't think it'd be any problem. Any rep, I think, in town would be willing to come here and talk about things. You might even get someone on the Recreation Committee to come here and talk. Oh.
Thanks.
There's Wayne McDonald is the chair of Human and Health
Health and Human Services.
Health and Human Services. It's a very, very tough, very, very tough committee. I would not want to be on that committee. That is extremely tough. And then we have one that's assigned to the state and federal. And trying to remember, I don't know where Sodi's assigned to. That I don't know, but he's only half a rep, I think. We share him with Wyndham. And then we got Tom. Is he a municipal?
Yeah, Tom's on municipal.
Yeah, municipal. So, yeah, so we have people fill, municipal, energy. We don't have anybody on education, so, but we always bring someone in if there was a burning question. I don't know what the utilities would want to do with that, but we have that. So, and I say this very, very jokingly, but Wayne does have a tough job with the type of issues he has to deal with in HHS. His job is so much tougher with mine. He has to deal with all of those issues that are just out really hard to tackle. My job, I only have to deal with the end of the world. So, it's just like night and day.
Isn't Sharon
think-
Carson also on Health and Human Services?
Sharon?
She's the president.
She's not
so
on
she's
any
not on a committee.
She's
Huh?
the
She's not on a committee. She's the president.
Okay.
So I think if we wanted Sharon to come, I think the best time might be June or July, when there's no session. You think?
If you wanted the Senate energy people to come, that'd be a little difficult. You got Senator Avard out of Goffstown area. He's the chair, and Howard Pearl is the vice chair, but he's out of farmland up outside of, I don't know how far up is the Lakes region.
Yeah.
It would be tough to get them. So I guess you have to deal with me on this.
We can get-
No, well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
It's been very informative.
Sure, great, glad to help. I know that for some reason we have just the reps have a meeting this Friday with the town manager, I think. So if there's anything that, I'm sure you've got the emails, right? If there's anything that you think we want to discuss, just let me know. I have no idea what it's about, but if you have any ideas you want to pass on or ideas. I did have one individual came with me at the beginning of the year, said, I have an idea for a bill. So I took it, I talked it over with Eversource, because it would affect them. And it turns out that they were already working on that issue and everything, so we didn't submit it. But if you have an idea, a solid idea for a bill that you think might help in one way or another, let me know soon, before the end of the summer. And if it's something that I think we can, makes a lot of sense, I can submit it in time for next year as well.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me.
you.
Thank you.
That's good. I mean, I'd rather to have you guys have full attention and ask those questions, which were all good.
Let's give him a hand.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, and Ray, I know you'll have a lot of questions for me. Anyway. Ray, I got one quick story. We had a bill that came to us. I forget what the nature of that bill was. It was very obtuse. Nobody came. The prime sponsor didn't come.
Oh.
Nobody that co-sponsored the bill came. The general public didn't come. The lobbyists weren't even there.
But who came?
But who came? Oh, Ray. He sat down.
It had to do with spaceships or something
Yeah,
like
so-
that,
so-
right? You know,
Oh, it was to have it was to direct one of the departments to do a statewide study on people's UFO sightings and
yes,
things like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And it was like, yeah, okay, fine. We'll leave that to the federal government.
They asked me if I wanted to speak, and I said, no,
No.
I don't.
Thank you,
How
Doug.
did it come, did we fund it?
Did we write
We
a
had-
bill to prohibit it?
we had to take someone off of our committee, because by our rules, we had to introduce the bill to the committee. So someone that knew nothing about the bill had to not read the bill, but just say, I introduce blah, blah, blah. He did speak a few words about it, because he comes from that area where he has a lot of constituents that are concerned about those things. But outside of that, there were no questions, nobody else was there, case closed, nobody interested, so we just said, well, I guess the bill doesn't pass, because
I
there's
could
no
have
one
told
here.
him about the sighting in Exeter.
Okay.
Well, that's the famous
Okay,
one.
guys, we're not the UFO committee.
Thank you.
Well, it's
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
the lizard people are stopping people from attending. Right?
Ooh, you think so?
I think it's true. The
Wow.
Illuminati and the lizard people.
Wow.
I'm telling you. I saw it on the internet.
And I just heard it from you, so that's true. I know it's true. I know it's true. So,
Moving right
good
along.
information, good information. We have a fair amount of things to talk about, so we're just gonna start moving through it. Next thing is, approval of the March minutes. John, you sent them out, any comments back, or are we good to go?
My public speaker here. So, I had a couple
your
of them.
editor.
Your editor, that's right.
Editor.
So I'm gonna make corrections, section E, it's was, not waste. Also conservation, not conversation. It's interim, not intern. Of not to is to. Other than that, you're all set. Basically, my subject matter.
You're gonna send me those, right?
What's
So
that?
Kirsten,
The amended ones?
Yeah, we'll send you the manual, yes.
so we can vote to approve that, those as amended? Have a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion
Do
to
I have a second?
Second it.
So, we have a motion and a second to approve the March minutes as amended. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Can I do two housekeeping things?
Yep.
So, both you and Jeff always put, public comment as the second item and public comment as the next to the last item.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, is that the reason so public comment people are here? And at the end of meeting, public comment on things we discussed,
Yep.
is there a reason to put it?
Yep.
Good, so that stays. The next question is, I think there are regulations that when the meeting happens, I have to have the draft within how many days? I gotta get 5 days.
5 business days. Within 5 business days, the minutes need to be available to the public.
To the public, so that means I gotta get the draft out, approved.
So here's the thing.
Okay,
Approving minutes is not required by literally any statute ever.
okay, good.
Minute approval at the subsequent meeting is a board convention. It's a best practice. It's a good thing to do because that at least encourages everybody to do it. But under 91A, the minutes have to be available within 5 business days. There are some of our boards that don't even approve minutes. They just trust the
So
secretary and.
that means I will get them out within 5 days.
Yeah,
going
so
forward, okay?
what you can do is, what I'll do is I'll post those draft minutes.
Yes,
And then if you amend them after the next meeting,
I will give you.
I'll just
the-
update them.
I'll give you the updated one.
And the shiny new agenda center makes it oh so easy.
Yes, I know.
So, yeah.
We'll give you a raise too if you can make that
You
happen.
can double
Yeah.
if you want.
definitely
What's doubled, what's nothing doubled? Sorry. It's been a long
Moving
couple
on,
days.
Kirsten, anything happening in town hall? I know you've been
There's lots
away.
happening town hall. I'm sure I'll have some things to discuss and some replies to you as we move through this tonight, but a couple of updates. As you might know, we received a fiscal year 23 and a fiscal year 24 HUD grant for water and sewer infrastructure. The one for fiscal year 23 was for the construction of a sewer pump station on Pillsbury Road to help move the sewer flow around. That's as much as you're getting from me tonight. I apologize. Redistribute, that's the word I was looking for.
But you did
We
pass
have,
up a real opportunity for you.
Oh, yeah.
it's been a long few days. That environmental review was approved approved by our representative last Wednesday and then by the head of HUD on Thursday. So we are a go moving forward into the bid process for that, which is delightful. The other one is still in process. It's much earlier because it was a fiscal year 24 grant. So we are still in the very early stages. We're working on that executed grant agreement with our partners on that one, the people who are going to be doing the construction. So they're both in good shape, but the pump station is going to move forward with the bid process in the near future. High Range Road is the water project moving forward along schedule, right along Penachuk's schedule. So Casey Harding, who's really kind of the head engineer on the project over there, has been thrilled with the way it's going. We're in really good shape there. And Sanko Bay negotiations continue. And before I will say, that's where that conversation ends. So, yep.
Great.
All right.
Thank you very much.
You are most welcome.
So, for Krista, congratulations on the new webpage.
Thank you.
It works.
It does.
Nice.
It works.
To which, I owe you all a meeting, we're gonna try to meet this week, now the new webpage is up, to how we're gonna do document posting, retrieval. My thoughts is a document that has hot links, so the documents we wanna put in there from either the subcommittees or our committee, the Pennachuck thing, your schedule thing, slides on the merger and stuff like that, I'll make a document, so all you have to do is take your little mouse and left click, and it puts you right there.
Okay.
So
Jeff has
that's
some
what I'm
ideas
thinking.
too. So this is actually something I'm going to work with kind of both of you on, because we do have some, we're to the point where we can use some of the Microsoft Office tools
Right.
too, that we might be able to do something a little bit more, that's a little bit faster to update than necessarily a document,
Yeah.
right? A little bit more dynamic. And then as long as the big trick is whatever we choose can't have asynchronous communication on it or any sort of chat threads or anything. So it just needs to be a repository, but we can certainly.
That was the
do that.
Samson report,
Yep.
whatever it is. That'd be a good thing to put in there.
Absolutely.
A bunch of
So-
electric things that you guys, energy
Yeah.
stuff you
Yep,
put in
yep.
there. It just makes it easy. We want to jump and find it, not to find it in 16 different places.
Yep.
So that's my thoughts.
Yeah. But now that
The
I was-
email search.
You're
Yeah.
thinking
Yes.
an
Yeah.
open, you're thinking an open document repository, not like a working,
No, can't be
OneNote.
working, can't be notes. Can't
right,
be anything
everything
like
has
that.
to be open,
Right.
yeah.
and
No, a judge.
now
Judy
that
should
I've finished, now that that project is done, I'm gonna try and get in with the two of you guys next week, and we'll see if we can talk about something that'll work for your respective committees, where you each have, where you have room for committees, but as for the utilities committee in general. Because you do have a disproportionate amount of documentation that you need to review in between meetings that doesn't necessarily belong on an agenda. It's not that it's not public, it's just that it's not an agenda item, it's knowledge base. That's what I'm looking for. So you have a knowledge base that you need to build that's shared. So I can work with you guys on that.
Nice.
And Kirsten, if I could suggest, once you've finished with these guys and worked out all the nitty-gritty details, bring it over to our committee and just explain it all to us, okay?
Ten
I'll
four.
explain it here,
And then
right?
we'll move forward.
We're gonna explain-
Love it.
We need a repository too.
Amen.
It was meant for everybody.
Only kidding.
So, moving on, Martha, anything on the master plan?
Not really, any update. This upcoming one, I'm hoping that, I think the last meeting was a very good meeting. We talked about, housing and various things surrounding that topic. There was a lot of feedback from the committee, and Sylvia seemed receptive. We had a few people in the audience that night that made comments. And hopefully, I think that we're going to be getting a breakdown of chapters at this next meeting. So I'm really looking forward to this, because Mike had brought up at the last meeting about, looking at the last master plan that was done in 2013, which, did have a lot of information, and I just went back and reviewed it a little bit again, and so many of the things that we're talking about now were things that we were talking about then. And we've seen how much time has passed, so, I think that if we can zero in more, that's what I'm looking forward to in the next master plan meeting.
I think that the lesson you drew, which is the right one, is that somehow there was in the old master plan a mechanism to encourage implementation. There was
Exactly.
a requirement for reviews and scorekeeping.
It was
and-
like a whole implementation committee, I
Right.
think.
Well, no, that too, but what, I guess the lesson learned here is whatever that was didn't work.
Correct.
So, yeah, I encourage you to try to figure out a way that will
Absolutely.
work.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
Too many things that were not implemented, that are still
Yeah.
pending, that we should look at again. Wait a minute, I'm not in the committee, I'm sorry.
Moving on?
If we're done with master plan,
We are.
I spent a couple of pleasant hours today on the City of Lebanon's website. And they have, it was originally done, I think, in 2011 or so, but they have a bunch of chapters that were updated in like 2020. One of them is a master plan for energy, which I just brought the to-dos from it. It runs to about probably 20, 30 pages. It's excellent. I mean, I think you could do a global change, substitute Londonderry for Lebanon and make a few editorial tweaks along the way. But we could use this, I think, as a checklist for what did we forget? And looking at it, I think, with it, I gave Lynn some stuff to add to his draft master plan, but this is, I would want to go back and use this as my checklist to say, well, what about this, what about that, what about that? So if you haven't followed Lynn's advice at looking at that, it would probably behoove you to do something. It's the way things ought to be.
Interesting.
Excellent.
They have a water main.
Yes,
I will look it up. Lebanon, you said?
yep, City of Lebanon.
And it's their master plan, right?
Yeah, so that a lot of the plans are folded in as chapters to the master plan. So if you just, there's a page on the master plan, and then you could look at the first part, the table of contents, figure out what chapter you want to go to,
Right,
and then just go to that page.
Perfect, thank you.
right.
And understanding that our new town manager is gonna be coming from Lebanon
Right.
as well, so
Right.
he's gonna be very familiar with the content
Yeah, yeah,
and the
excellent.
execution of it, so.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay. 2025 goals and objectives, if anybody has any updates to that, just shoot them my way. I'm gonna get those to Kirsten in the next couple of weeks. They'll post them on our webpage, and that way they'll be available for everybody to look and point fingers at and say, why aren't you doing what you said you were going to do? Moving on, subcommittees. So first up is energy. We actually had a meeting last Saturday, our first meeting in a while. Good to get together, and I enjoyed our time together. Master plan, as Mike was talking about, we do have a draft out there. I have provided the draft to Sylvia and to Kelly and to the master plan steering committee, just to the leadership of the master plan steering committee, just trying to get some feedback from them that we're on the right track with the way it's formatted and the level of content that we're providing in it. And I think I'm going to look at that tomorrow, the Lebanon plan, and just get a feel for that as well. The energy audit, the Eversource energy audit, we did have Paul Ramsey and I are pursuing that. Dave Woolley and I had a conversation a few weeks ago. Dave's ready to go with that. We had talked about having it after the snow season. And so he's ready to go, and so we're just making the connections at this point in time to make it happen. Mike, you want to talk about EECBG block grant?
My story is the same, and I'm sticking to it. I did send another email to the program office asking how the appointment of the grant administrator was coming along, and I got a nice reply that said, we're still working on that.
Yep.
And I sent them a reply, which I have not heard from, asking them whether that we should be concerned about whether any of our grant money is going to be clawed back. I wanted to ask Kirsten whether our FY '24 HUD grant is in danger.
No.
So that, basically,
Yep.
no change.
Holding, yep, okay. Water subcommittee?
Yeah, had a nice water meeting. We, got a clicker here, which is exciting.
Same, please.
We had some really good news. It's a bit, just a tiny bit dated. Pennachuck had a merger. There are 3 divisions, I guess they call them, put together for the Pennachuck Water Works Incorporated. Londonderry was in Pennachuck East, as you can see here. If you look at the New Hampshire Order 27098, They talk about the reason for the merger was the smaller areas were too small and had trouble getting capital for the build out and for servicing their customers, and this would provide a more stable service. That comes from the Public Works Department, and on the Public Works documentation, the little block that's on there shows the PEU, which is us, should anticipate a 37% decrease in the water cost going forward. I saw that mine was quite a bit lower. I don't know if it was 37%, but I am not vouching for that. That is what was published by Pennachuck and the Public Utility Commission. Good news. And they had a nice, interesting piece of information. We now know that Pennachuck revenue is about 55 million from their order. So something in that order of magnitude. You know, we could probably get into the detail. I know their financials are published, but that's a piece of data that I had that was very ready. So a piece of good news. I can't really take credit for it, but I'll announce it. Again, doing the order of priority by time, immediate concerns. We're working on the water master plan. Martha had an excellent idea. I'll give her credit for thinking about it a couple weeks ago on if we spent $50 million to put water mains everywhere. I'm not sure if that's the price, but it's a lot. Will people spend the money to bring water to their house? We just don't know. I asked the question of the town manager, the interim town manager. He was pretty. He was very interested in getting that piece of information, and he said he would help us reach out to the well owners. We had a quick discussion, figuring out who the well owners should be easy. Either Pennachuck will have a list of them, or they'll have a list of their customers in Londonderry, and then the town will have a list of the residents in Londonderry, and we can just do a search of A, not B, so we can track it down with Excel. It's easy enough. Kim said he could help with sending out mailers or somehow touching the people to say, hey, would you spend X dollars to connect to the water main?
I will say before we move forward with conducting that information, we should loop back with NHDES, particularly Brandon Kernan. They've done a lot of information on education and how to kind of properly phrase those questions.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
And
Brandon Kernan of,
you said?
and I can start that conversation if you'd like.
Yeah, I'll-
Last time he was here, Ron, you were at that
Yeah.
meeting. He spoke about having some really good information on how to kind of broach that conversation with people. And so before, I would say, it's when you're asking those questions, it's extraordinarily important to present them in a way that does not prejudice an answer one way or another. And so I think that's where Brandon could help us a lot.
Yeah,
So,
I anticipated working with you. That's not something that I
Oh,
can do.
yeah, we would not just do
Yeah,
that.
we're
Oh,
not
yeah,
gonna-
but I think that this is,
Yeah.
that he's somebody who I think could really give us a hand with that. So I can reach out and kind of
And they want to help
start.
us.
They do very much so, yeah.
Also, aren't all septics permitted? Or,
So septic is different than water. You can be on sewer.
oh,
It's different. It's,
oh, okay,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure how we're gonna
Okay,
get the data, but
okay,
I am
yeah,
99%
okay.
sure we can get the data with a
Okay.
little bit of checking.
All right.
So this actually could derail the whole idea of doing the build out, because if we find out that 5% of people would spend the money, then it's a moot question. However, I think it's
already been done.
it might have been done, yeah. So great idea. Absolutely moving forward with it. I've reached out to the town and I've reached out to Pennachuck, and we're in the process of getting that data. We're looking at getting community water plans. We're going to get the stuff from Lebanon and use that for examples. We're collecting other documents. One of the questions that Pennachuck, collecting documents from other towns to see what other people have done. One of the questions that Pennachuck had when John and I spoke with them 2 weeks ago, they said they would have the start of a plan. Don't let me misspeak here, John.
No, you're right.
They said they would have the start of a plan, and the quantity of work was not a lot. They hadn't really done anything. and they had thrown it back to us to
They
say,
wanted more data from us that they should have.
they should have called us back in November to say, hey, we need more data.
Right.
So they threw it back to us. It was sort of meeting meeting ping pong. So what we're gonna do as a committee is put together a couple models of, these are the ways Londonderry can grow over the next 20 or 30 plus years, and this is how many people could grow. It's either slow growth, middle growth, high growth, to get some models for water demand. And we'll talk about it as a committee, and then probably talk to the town engineer to get at least a frame of where it's going to grow.
And then we got a little deeper. I'm gonna ask a question.
No, please.
A very specific question without saying too much. Negotiations at the AG's office with the St. Albans, how you say their last name, is that still going on? And leave it alone.
It is going on, still active.
Right. So one of the things
I
we
will
brought
not
up-
let it die, I
I'll
promise
show
you.
you what I brought up was, I actually kind of asked them, I said, well, wait a minute, you're an investment company or a corporation. Why aren't you scoping out what it would cost? We have a map now.
Yeah.
We know exactly where the wells that are under the decree. We know where this pipeline now is. We now know where the water tank is. We want to start connecting the dots. We want to take and see main trunk lines go in. Could you scope that out and estimate the cost? I want to do that is so I can hand it to you, so you can then use that as a leveraging tool, which you need to do. They were a little reluctant, and I basically said, I know you look for outside funding and stuff like that, but no, you can go to the PUC and get a rate adjustment for things that, and there are, money's available. So we pushed back.
Yeah,
Jeff
we-
and I quite a bit.
We
quite a
pushed
bit.
back. They held firm, but we came
So-
at it pretty hard.
The one thing I do want to add with that is that please keep in mind when you're working with Penachuk on these things that there are a number of things that they are also doing for us. They're the construction management company
Sure.
for the High Range Road, so they're currently engaged in a lot of things to do with us on the current projects that we're doing too. So if you do get a little bit of delay, it's not necessarily pushing back. It's just to some degree, it's going to be prioritizing what
She did, well, she's
Yeah.
did mention that.
we
And-
need right now
Yep.
for
Yes.
different parts of several different projects.
what would
So
we-
just, I would just ask for your
So
grace
what
on
we
that.
need right now is the project list that has been updated.
Which
She did
you'll-
respond to me today. She said she would get it back to me today.
Yep.
I know they're behind the gun, but I'm trying to get an update, like, well, the water tank is done. And oh, by the way, I gotta send an email to John Bovet. We still have 40 turkeys trapped inside that fence. They flew in.
Like
they
turkey
can't get
turkeys?
out. Yeah, turkeys,
Okay.
big ones. So I check it every day. But maybe they're gone, who
And-
knows?
And the town manager wants to get a copy of that project list too.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah, he said
So-
that'd be real. I mentioned that we were working on it, and
Yep.
he was excited about that.
So Erin mentioned she tried to get it back to me today. I guess she got busy. As soon as I get it, I will send it out.
Perfect. So they were helpful, but they hadn't done what we had talked about, which is, it's just fine. They're running a business. But we do have some to-dos that we owe them by the end of this month. We can at least get ideas to discuss. Have the beginning of a draft of at the level of the energy plan that I owe Lynn. Well, we owe it to review it as a group, and then we discuss it, submit it to Lynn. So it's moving forward. We have most of the data, but the constraint is, are people going to want to write checks to plug into the water main?
Right.
So, at the end of the day, I think it's something that people would want. It's 2025. We need to have town water. And I think if we get it done in a timely manner, even if it takes 5 or 10 years or however long, 5 years, it would be a good outcome for the town.
What, can I ask you, Joe?
Yeah, please.
What's your target percentage? Do you have I mean, if it was 80 yes and 20 no, is that good, bad, or indifferent?
Great question. I don't know.
Depends where they live.
Yeah, it depends.
I personally don't have a target. I just want to know.
Yeah, I want to know. If the number is extremely low, then it's an easy decision. If the number's extremely high, it's an easy decision. I don't know where the maybe
If you're one
is.
of the 3,000 wells that are polluted, it's a very easy decision.
Yeah.
So that's part of the data we're trying to get from Penachuk.
Yep.
How much is it gonna cost to get that pipe from here to here, because this is a danger zone?
Yep.
Oh, here's another danger zone over here, but there's no main that goes from there to there. And so we're trying to collect that data.
And
But then you
DES
have a
has a
very
lot
good
of-
question.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute, there's all these other homes that have wells that aren't polluted. Are they gonna wanna hook up? You're right. We don't know. That'd be a great, data number to go after.
Well, because the other thing I would think about is what are the action steps depending on the results of your survey, okay? Is that something that you have to try to sell to people that,
So
keep in mind who you're talking to, salesperson.
No, I
okay?
understand.
I said.
So I think there's two populations that we're considering. There are the people that are in the consent decree that are dealing with what Ron is working on, and I'm not touching that. That's,
Right.
not my purview.
Right.
And I think what Kirsten told us pretty plainly is we're not supposed to sell the idea when we're doing the surveys. Did I hear that correctly? or
No,
did I-
it's not. It's not just the selling. I actually like the words I said were the words I meant. It's really important to when you're trying to get that survey. So, for example, if you quote unquote, I'm going to use these words, undersell it, then you get data saying, "Oh no, we're not going to do it," and then that can set the project back in the public opinion. And then, but if you go the other way and you say, "Hey, look, if you're too enthusiastic and people don't see all the nuances," then they turn around and say, "Oh, but that wasn't what I was sold," and then they get angry after the fact. So that's why just when we're talking about these kind of larger public relations initiatives, it's usually there's certain filters that you want to make sure you run it through.
Yep.
And there's certain resources that the state has that they're willing to help us with, because we don't want to either prejudice people against the project or skew them in a way towards the project towards the idea where later they may feel like they were misled.
Sure.
So we just want to be really careful with the factual and kind of the middle of the road thing.
And all those things are right online, but early in my career working for Hewlett Packard, I gave this to my lady who is paid to do, well, she has a staff to do surveys, and she gave me the look. She goes, I can tell you what the answers are gonna be already, right?
Yeah.
So, they
Right.
reworded the whole thing,
Right.
okay? So, how you ask a question can give you a predetermined answer. That needs to be looked at by many people, and that's what we have to be
Yeah,
careful.
we'll have to be careful about that.
And that's
I'm
where
really
this is.
talking here about post-survey, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want you to prejudice or go outside any lines with the survey, but my past experience with these kinds of things, I've never been in favor of asking questions without having plans, at least draft plans in place on what you're gonna do with the answers.
Sure.
Okay?
So,
And so, for example, is one of the things I would be thinking about for those people not in the consent area might be, is there a positive impact of having public water come to your house instead of a well on your real estate value? Okay, I have no idea if there is or there isn't, okay? Frankly, I don't think I've ever had public water, so, I don't know what the thing is. But I know that if all my neighbors had public water and I was the only one who didn't, would that have a negative value on my home? I don't know.
Can I say something? What we're talking about here is, this has to be done in phases, okay? The first phase we're in right now, that's High Range Road, okay? And my concern is this, that the people in the consent decree are the most that have been impacted, okay? We're talking about a survey, and we're in a partnership with Pennachuck Water, and they're good people, we want to respect them, we don't want to do anything that's going to screw the deal up, okay? But keep in mind, that money came to the town of Londonderry, federal money, state money, coming to the, and we are now doling that out to Pennachuck to get this done, okay? That's in process. We're in April now, it started, okay? But the survey of the people in the consent decree does need to be done. Pennachuck needs to know that.
Not in,
Not-
No, not-
not in the consent decree.
outside
No,
the consent.
We're
decree.
looking long-term.
Why are we
Ray,
concerned
you're looking
outside the consent
short
decree?
term, and
No,
that
because-
is being done.
You
We're
don't-
looking
The
long-term.
consent decree,
The
they're
consent
gonna
decree is
be
being
taken
done no
care
matter
of.
what, Ray.
Pardon?
The consent decree is being done no matter what.
Yeah,
How many people are gonna choose to hook into that?
I think every,
Ray.
if I was one, I would be every one of them.
Well,
But that isn't our,
Yeah,
our
that's-
issue. We're not going to be, that's the Saint-Gobain thing.
Right.
That we're talking about people that are contaminated that are outside of the consent decree.
Okay, and how many are there?
Well,
That information is available,
Right,
okay?
right.
But I like what you brought up, and that is, if you're gonna have a questionnaire, what are you gonna do with that data? Think about that first before you do the questionnaire.
At least in draft form.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, on the private business side of things, okay? Questionnaires without a plan at the other end didn't get funded, okay?
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
it just didn't happen.
We'll make a plan.
So we're talking about the
Well,
whole town.
Yeah.
We're
and
talking
there-
about the whole town.
Yeah,
That
the whole
is
town.
part of
I
what
think
the
we're getting
plan's
way
gonna.
too far ahead.
Yeah, I mean,
We're
this
getting way
is,
too far ahead.
yeah,
This is 10 years down the road.
yeah,
Yes.
And the information on how many beyond, in the west side of High Range Road, that information is available. How many wells are contaminated in the west east of High Range Road?
right,
New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services has that.
right,
The town of Londonderry has that.
right.
And so, how much of that is? Okay, yes, we do need to look at that, and that survey does need to be done. But are we not concerned about getting water off High Range Road when the line's put in and get it piped to those people? Now, we would think every one of those people do want to hook into that. But when Pennachuck is looking at that, they want to know how many customers are going to hook in. They want to know exactly how many customers are going to hook in, because that's business for them, okay? They're providing a vital service, but they want to make a profit. They're entitled to.
Not if they're not paying for the pipe.
We're paying for the pipe.
So,
Exactly.
guys, I think we're
Yeah.
getting off
Yeah,
track.
we're
off-
No, we're getting off track here.
Okay, we're off track.
We're talking downstream, we're talking the 10-year plan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what we're talking. We're not talking
6
High
months.
Range Road.
6 months
Yeah.
down the road, High
Yeah.
Range Road. We're talking 10 years down the road. And, you know, in understanding that water is a regional problem, and how do we deal with that from a community standpoint, and how do we deal with that from a regional standpoint? That's what we're trying, really, in my mind, that's what we're trying to establish.
Yeah, that's
And you look skeptical, but
That's right.
that's where we're at right now, I think.
I think it's 2 steps, Ray. What you're talking about is A, well, this is B.
Well, yeah, but we're on this board here, and not gonna figure all this out. We're gonna have some input, we're gonna have some,
absolutely.
Absolutely.
we're gonna figure this all out?
No.
No, that's
No,
why
no,
he's
we're not
telling us
engineers.
that we're going to get this plan, and we're gonna talk to Pennachuck about this plan, and we're gonna look at
moving
the
the ball down the
plan
road.
that's already
Yeah.
been done for the town. And then, yeah, it's,
Yeah, we have the Weston and Sampson plan. We're collecting
So-
other people's information.
Can we,
Okay,
you good?
Yeah.
You good if we move on?
pardon?
Are you good if we move on?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Jeff?
So, great idea. I'm gonna add the, plan for after the survey, 100% to the sequence. So that's moving forward. And I'll, Kirsten, I'll work with your people on the framing of the questions, because I have no idea how to do that. You know, I can do the data piece, I can't do the question piece. So that is moving forward, and I think, aside from just the master plan, this is gonna be a good, if we get it done, it'll be a good thing for the town, period. Remediation of the thinking water leaching. We didn't really discuss this week or this month, but I know last month it was a big deal and we had people coming in. I left it in because I was hoping to get an update from Kirsten.
I have no update for you at
Okay.
this time.
All right. I'll just
Hopefully
make
I
a
will
note
have
in.
one for May, but I
was
don't
gonna
have
say,
one
you
at
may
this
not
time.
have an update for a while.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
I will at least have an update on, if I can have an update for you for May. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just put it
Except
in
for-
the be aware pile and I won't.
Yeah.
Okay. High Range Road construction, Kirsten, you covered this. I had to sit down with town leadership. We discussed it. Absolutely top of mind. He seemed to be very much on top of it. So, and then the bottom thing is the question that we're not going to discuss in this venue. Pennachuck, John is getting an update on this chart today or tomorrow-ish. And this gives us what's going on with Pennachuck. Ray, you're gonna be excited about this. This tells us all the projects they're working on. And John, the town manager, has asked to see a copy of this or be copied on this when we produce it. I think this is really interesting and valuable because this, this gives us an idea of all the stuff that's going on.
So Pennachuck kind of likes this, and they're hoping to start producing on their webpage, something like this.
I think this is
I'll-
great.
Nice.
I'll see it when I believe it. No, I believe what I see. You know what I mean?
I think this is great. Because they've got to have in their ERP system some sort of
Think so, but
something. Yeah, one would think. Community outreach, we continue working. So this is, I'm going to complain a little bit. So we've been trying to get the community outreach. Mike and Joy sent some ideas for questions, and I had some ideas. Those are the only responses I got from the outreach letters that I sent out over the last 6 weeks. And if we as a committee want to do this, we need better engagement as a committee. So we've got, 9 or 12 people on the committee? 3, 9, 12-ish?
Got 10.
10?
10 plus Ron.
10 plus Ron.
10 plus Ron.
And Ron's worth 2, so 12.
That's not true.
So we've got a lot, we have a lot more
Two
than 2
jobs right
people
now.
on the committee. And I'd ask people if we want to decide as a committee to do this, we need to have more than 2 people respond. And we need to have people commit to do the outreach, or we need to decide that we're not going to do this.
So, reminder, at our water committee meeting, this lady here suggested that every one of us volunteer a subject,
I 100% agree with that.
okay? And if somebody needs help and says, John, I want you to do a video on this goes in waste, this doesn't go in waste, this little container does this little container, I know you guys have a lot of that stuff anyways, but whatever it is, the recreation trail, whatever it is, if we need video help to do it, if we need to write an article, we discussed talking to Deb about posting more of these articles.
Yeah.
So, you brought that up, so.
Yeah.
So I think we should, I mean,
I
we
think
got
it's a fabulous
experts
idea.
here that,
Yeah, we have a lot of really good people on this board or committee, and I would like to get the feedback to the town, and at the end of the day, the presentation that we did with Mr. Malaguti, I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was a lot of fun. It felt like it supported the high range.
all the data you guys gave me, it took me about 4 hours to put
Yeah,
together. the
it was a
Q&A.
lot of fun.
Same thing, it could be done, and then.
It was helpful.
It was.
Yeah, it was helpful. So we talked about doing this as a committee, but we only had 2 people provide the feedback. So I'll ask one more time. If people want to, if people have things they want to do, please, I'll send out another email after this, and please respond.
The other thing that was suggested, this lady here,
Yeah, please.
that, when we wanna do a subject, and we're gonna talk about it, that we build it up, put it in the webpage, an announcement, the new
I
blank thing.
think it's a great idea.
And ask them to put it in the pot. The Utilities Committee will now be discussing, I don't care, let's pick some subject. The water tank going on, and how it's gonna affect, your community, or something like that. And would you like to come to that meeting, there'll be a presentation.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Why are you smiling? You think it's gonna work?
No, you say you have a presentation on the effect of water tanks on the turkey
Yeah, there we
population.
go.
So,
And they thought wind turbines would kill birds.
all right. So this email is going to go out again. That's enough on this slide. Short term, high range road construction. We talked about this. I think I'm repeating myself. High range wood water line. This was the schedule we had last time. The bluff bottom line up front as the project's progressing. Kirsten, you probably have more specific details, but as of 2 weeks ago, I was told that it's progressing and it's moving along. You mentioned Casey, the engineer. So it sounds like it's moving ahead, which is good to hear.
We're in the middle of a couple of comment periods right now, and we're waiting for those to end, and that's really the big thing. But there's already been conversations about,
But we have engineers
cons-
and city managers and.
oh yeah, all of that stuff is 100% on board.
Everybody's bear hugging the project.
Everybody knows where they are. I have to say, it is one of the, it is a remarkably well coordinated effort. I have to give Casey and Mark, and I see Ron nodding. I think he
agree.
agrees with me. Casey
I
and
100%
Mark
agree.
have knocked this out of the park.
This is
There's-
great. Yeah. So, thank you
100% agree.
to
Yes.
yourself and to Casey. Water portion of the master plan, we're working on the details. I should have proofed this. Still need the data on the growth. I'm gonna do some models. Goals for December, obviously, that slipped. Moving forward, long-term, last mile build-out, this is the, thing that we're talking about on the, bringing water to the individuals. And the water availability, this is something that they talked about when we were sitting down with the Pennachuck people. And this is even, 10 and 20 years out, is once we have the main lines to everybody, and if Londonderry grows 50%, where are they gonna bring additional water in? And it's not a problem for today, but it will be, it's not a concern for today, but it will be a concern eventually. And they were aware of it, and they were sort of thinking about it, but they didn't seem like something they needed to put shovels in the ground in the next 6 months. So it's something that they're thinking about. I don't think we need to take any action on this at this point.
No.
That's it. Any questions or comments?
So just one comment, so go ahead, Mike.
Well, just thinking about your discussion on the projecting the demand, surely the master plan is going to look at some kind of build-out scenario or population. So don't we want to make sure that our plans are using the same model as the master plan?
Well, you brought this up
Yes.
the last meeting. You don't wanna see us get so far ahead, so we're going this direction and the master plan went that direction. I think that's your gist was.
I mean, and this isn't necessarily, unless they do a low, medium, high, we don't necessarily need to do that. We need to do what they're doing.
Oh, absolutely.
If we see some fatal flaw, then, great, then let's fix it, but.
Yeah.
What I
I think
anticipate,
we should, I'm sorry, I'll do it quick. I think we should work, and then somehow we need to meet with the planning committee and say, this is what we have.
Yep.
Do you like it? Don't like it? Whatever. I think we
Absolutely.
can do some parallel work. I don't wanna wait for them, because they're waiting for us. That's what I'm afraid of. I do have the same concern you have. Matter of fact, I brought up to Lynn, as we started, Jeff and I get down to the data points, projecting growth. How many planning board waivers have we done on the minimum 1 acre per house thing? I mean, we got 100 by 100 lots now, right? At one time in this town, we had a 3 acre zoning, then it went down to an
Yeah,
acre and a
yeah.
quarter. But if I'm gonna project, I just can't say, well, we have enough room for 600 houses on 1 acre. If all of a sudden it gets switched, it's now for condos.
600 houses on 1 acre.
No, I'm sorry, per
Oh.
acre, per acre, per acre.
I was
So
gonna
that's,
say.
when you start getting into the details, it's good to know what, just the last couple of years, what the percentage of variance is. That's the word I wanna use, zoning variances.
The state came down with some decisions, or coming down with some decisions about
Proposing
zoning
Oh, really?
proposed.
I didn't know that. Well, I know they did on elderly.
But,
Which could make a huge difference.
That's exactly my point.
yeah,
but,
your question is very valid. The intention is to put together not the plan, but a model, and, do it in Excel spreadsheet, so if we need to wiggle it a little higher or a little lower, it's just changing a number.
Yeah.
And then it should populate all the way through. I've done those a lot.
yeah,
That's easy
everything-
for me to do.
Everything
Excel.
needs to tie together.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. We're not,
Yeah,
we
so
need to
what,
tie
so
this
I can
together.
build the model of what we think the growth may be, and then use some estimates on water usage, and then bring it to the town, to the town planning, the master plan committee, and say, hey, listen, this is what we're working on. Does this fit with what you guys are thinking? If not, show me where I'm wrong.
Yep.
And then we'll adjust it.
Yep.
And I'll take the action to build the model, and then we can have the master plan committee say, this is, a little more here, a little less there, and then change that, and that could be a tool for the master plan committee as well. So,
Should work the other way around, in my view.
it should.
We're not setting policy.
No,
No,
Yeah, I just want to create a tool so we can move forward. I don't want to be
think of us as Think Tank Incorporated, how's that?
I like it. JJ think
a
tanks.
water think tank, that's what we are.
So,
We got
I-
people
I-
working together.
So I think,
So I had a question for Kirsten,
yes,
and that's going back to the Pennachuck rate decrease. Is there any, is there a bad reason, a good reason, not to send something out, letting people know that Pennachuck rates are coming down for those people that are paying Pennachuck water?
I mean, the biggest reason that there was when you first emailed me about it is I was in France, so that was a
So
good reason.
To clarify,
Um,
certain people on a certain plan.
Yeah.
Not everybody gets that rate. So some of us are already on the cheaper rate plan. There are other people, because of consolidation and stuff like that, are on a different rate plan.
You got a mailer
in-
from
in
Pennachuck,
town?
Yeah, I
didn't you?
did. I sent it
Right.
out.
Everybody that was on Pennachuck, including me, got a letter
Oh,
with
okay.
that exact graph in it.
If you would like, I can reach out to Pennachuck's communications department and kind of solidify some of the facts, and then I'd be more than happy to work with you on writing something up on that. Yes, we can certainly do that. I just, to everybody's point, I just want to make sure that we're saying the right things.
Right.
No,
Absolutely.
And
Now
they
that
did
I'm home.
re-tier it. They did re-tier it too.
I
So
wasn't going to do it
now
from
you have
Paris, sorry.
different tiers, how much water you use.
So, you know, we've heard everybody complain about Pennachuck water rates, and it was just a nice story.
Yeah.
My bill went down. I was thrilled. I came
You know,
back
and,
to a,
w-
I was
would
under
wonder for
$40
what
last month. It was
period of
amazing.
Time is that for? You know, because rates go up and down for what period of time?
Yeah, and we can make it as complicated as we want to or not.
Well, I
And,
mean, yeah, but I mean,
no,
if you're
no.
gonna put it out to the general public as, you know, this is what it is.
My understanding is those rates are done on a yearly basis by PUC approval.
Yeah.
By cubic feet, meters, whatever they charge.
Cubic feet, yeah.
Yeah, at the end of the day,
It's just a good little piece of PR, Ray.
Yeah.
it's just good news.
They're going down.
Do you want us,
Down,
you
down.
want one of us to get the article again and get it to you, or?
People like,
Yeah, if you'd like to send it to me, I just
Yeah.
want, like I said, I just want to run that up.
True, fine.
right.
Yeah, that's.
Before I put anything out like that, it just needs to go up the flagpole past the town manager and the council.
There
So-
you go.
And they need to sign off on it. But I'm
And-
certainly willing to start working on it and see where it goes.
Yeah, we're often guilty of not putting out good news,
Right.
so.
Some
that-
good news
that's
is
my
great
only
news.
thought.
Yeah, any opportunity to tell people that utilities are going down is a good opportunity.
Correct.
Even if it's for a year.
Yeah.
Okay, next.
Next, we're done with water?
Yep.
Solid waste?
Thank you. The primary strategy of the Sewer and Solid Waste Subcommittee, and that's too many words, from now on, we're SSW, okay? Is to provide useful and actionable information to the citizens of Londonderry. So, in looking at that and how it relates to a master plan, I sort of broke it down into two areas. Perhaps our primary initial focus will be on recycling in various modi here. Particularly, I think the first thing we need to do is get active on social media, local newspapers, et cetera, and sort of build a bridge, because we're going to be asking, perhaps down the road, for different things from our citizens. So right now, I think what we can do is build a bridge of trust with them, with SSW. So, and there are a number of things that we can communicate there. That one of them would be, you know, proper recycling. How do you do things correctly today? You know, what goes in the bin, what doesn't go in the bin? Kind of straightforward stuff that that there are a number of tools out there that we can use. In order to build that bridge, we have to kind of put the bricks in place. And so Joy, who's not here tonight, so I can lay it on her, is responsible for setting up a Facebook and an Instagram page for us, and an Instagram page for me, because I don't have one, so that we can kind of join some of these social media groups. We think that's one way to get fast and fairly widespread bang for our buck for the time that we're be involved from previous experience with these folks. And it's also, the Facebook groups tend to be well-established, and we can get into those a little bit. Instagram's a brave new world for me, but I think it's a way of reaching down into younger people, from what I understand. So, we'll have a number of things that we can communicate through those means. We need to, we have a program right now for waste oil recycling. There's a huge concern next about our waste oil shed behind the fire station. From a safety perspective, new information, we have an insurance company visiting next week to determine whether or not that facility is actually safe for us to continue to use. Whatever comes out of that whole process, I think we need to find a way to continue to do that program. It's a great program. It's basically closed loop, and compared to the alternative of when my father used to change his oil and dump it down the drain in front of the house, okay, well, waste oil recovery is a much sounder means and fits into the building trust type thing that we want to do. We are also looking, again, longer term, to reestablish a link with the Green Council in the high school with an objective of kind of reaching down to a younger group. I think it's something Ray has advocated a lot in our meetings about because the longest term impact is not on folks my age, but it's going to be on folks that are much younger and changing their behaviors going forward. So we're going to do that. And then finally, food waste is a huge problem, potentially. I think there is a short-term solution to it. There is not a business solution in the state of New Hampshire for residential composting. There are some companies that do it for profit, some smaller companies, but for a municipality to get into that business right now, we would have a problem even finding a vendor to provide that service. So I think we have to offer up. We have had a call this week. Lynn, I think, got the contact from someone in an apartment building who is looking to compost, and Joy will handle that. But so there is an interest out there on a more limited scale, but I think we want to publish something to let people know how to compost, and more importantly, if they don't want to do it in their own backyards, what are some of the residential and commercial opportunities that might exist out there for them. So that's sort of what we're looking at from a recycling point of view. On the sewer and septic tank side, we're looking at resurrecting a program we used to have in the Solid Waste Committee back in the day of reaching out to new residents in town with a mailer. You know, when I get a list, I still get the list of all the new residents coming into Londonderry every month, and we use that as a mailer basis in cooperation with the DPW to send them a packet. And in that packet, we can include things like Ray is working on a program to identify some flyers on septic tank maintenance, because a lot of folks have no idea what to do with their septic tanks and how often to service them and where they're located in their yards and how you find that stuff out. And
Why they shouldn't buy a garbage disposal and stick it in there, because they could.
whatever,
Right.
okay? There's a whole bunch of range, don't pour grease down the grease trap and, down the drain and all that. There's a whole bunch of things you need to know. So there are some brochures out there that are very good. And there are that's another opportunity, by the way, if you want to reach new people with new ideas, we can pop that into the mailer. We try to confine it to a small one-stamp envelope, but we could do better. So that's one way we can kind of work on folks there. And then Martha will be involved with communicating, Martha and Ray, for that matter, communicating monthly with our environmental engineer to get updates on sewer progress, project in our town. And sharing that out. Maybe we can be the voice of that to the citizens also. I know that there are a number of projects, we hear about them here, but maybe individual citizens would benefit from hearing about them too. So that's basically the gist of what we're working on.
Awesome. Any questions for John?
Yeah, I hate to ask this, but K-cups, are they recyclable?
If you look at the package, it says that they are.
But it's
But
got-
have you ever tried to peel the lid off of the top of one of those
So I have,
things?
I poked it, you peel it off, and I rinse them out. But then I did some more research, and I'm finding now that the plastic they come in is not good for you. So I now have bought the little special things. I can buy the ground stuff and put it in my Keurig, and I don't need the K-cups anymore.
There you go.
Right, sorry, but I had to ask.
Okay, so what happens after you do that for a period of time?
Yep.
Is all of a sudden your K-cup lid, the
Doesn't
thing that,
quite
it won't
close.
stay closed anymore.
I know.
And you end up going to the store and buying more plastic in your new Keurig dispenser than you save.
I heard it swells when the hot water hits it.
Exactly what happens.
I do a lot of research because of you guys.
Anything, John, on internet or the,
So a couple of quick
Cable
things. Kristen, could you bring up the email I sent? Thank you. It's a Word document. So I'm sorry I couldn't make the last meeting. I saw that he was getting what I already had when I watched the video, so I decided I was not going to infect everybody. But Ron showed me how to get there, and I got a couple of suggestions. And basically is, in this Word document you have, just over it. And if you want, just left click on your mouse, and it'll go bring you right to that. That's they call a hot link, okay? You go to the drop down, and you do a search, select current bill search. All right, so 1, 2. An example, if you scroll down, I did the thing power. There's what I did. I put it in there. And by the way, even though the regular search does give you some advanced capabilities, I am playing with the other one because I want to be able to put timestamps. So I can only give you certain blocks, and I'll tell you why in a second. And so the results, they'll look like this. So this is an interesting one. This is just the first one. There's another document that has all of them that came out on that search. And basically, it was in committee, it passed, adopted the amendment, and it's on 4/14/225. So I guess that's the next hearing. So Ron, I have a whole bunch of questions for you. Example 2, you go to electric.
Sure.
And again, it comes up, and this is what it looks like. So it's inexpedient to legislate. I have no idea what that means.
Means the committee found the bill not warranted as going
That's
forward.
what that means. Okay. So I'll try to learn all the codes and stuff like
Yeah.
that. It looks like a lot of them have been reviewed already, like that was January
Yep.
21. There's a few more down there, and if you open the PDF file I sent you, which being an example of, and here we go to next, my suggestions. I'll try to move along as quick as I can here. Oh, there's the PDF file. If you scroll down, this was just electric. If you put in water, you actually get water and wastewater.
Yep.
So you have to sometimes separate them out, whatever, right? So there's things in there that says laid on table. Okay, that's interesting. I don't know what laid on table means.
Laid on table means that either the committee or in the House session,
Yep.
they decided that they didn't want to deal with this bill at this exact moment, and they put it on the table. So on the table means that it's sitting on the table, can be pulled off by any member at any point.
All right,
Okay, so if it's on the table, it can obviously be pulled back and reworked. If it's inexpedient to legislate, it means that it's done.
all right.
So a lot of times you'll see a committee put something on the table if they want to rework the bill.
Now, you guys only go from a period up until, when do you go into end of session?
So right now,
Yep.
April 10th is our crossover date for Senate.
Crossover date.
So that's when we get the Senate bills
Okay.
and we give them our bills.
Oh, okay,
So right now, there's no more House bills. We've dealt with all the House bills that had to be dealt with.
okay,
Now we're going to get the Senate bills.
okay.
And we do the same process. We review each one in committee and then they come to the House.
Which I know I can separate House bills and Senate bills.
Yes, you can.
All right, so we'll go back to the Word document. I got proposals for the committee.
Yep.
So my proposals are, look, if you want, A, follow the instructions above and create your own queries. Right? Or B, give me a list of keywords that each one of you want. I will create a report that covers that period. That's why I just asked you about the
Yeah.
period, Ron.
Yep.
And basically, I will send out a new report 1 week before our monthly meeting. That way you'll have it in hand in case you have to ask this gentleman any questions or other suggestions. It's up to you, A, B, or C.
I like B because we're all seeing everybody else's thoughts.
I will do that. So I can send out just water for the person who wants water, or I'll make separate reports for each one, put them in the email file, send them to you. Or after Chris and I talk, I'll put it in a repository. But for right now, if you all want other people's reports, I'll do that. I'll do, from now, I guess going forward, it's the Senate bills only. And then I'll, and hopefully I'll,
So for us, there's going to be the Senate bills we're dealing with. The Senate is now going to be dealing with our bills. So depending on what avenue you want to follow, you may follow both.
Oh, I'll
Because,
follow both. I
for
didn't realize
example,
that
like
was
Doug was
reciprocal.
saying, one of his bills is now in the Senate. He went today to testify on it.
Okay,
So it was a House bill that passed the House. Now it's in the Senate.
got it.
So Doug went today to present it. It's going to either pass or fail in the Senate, and then it will go to the governor.
Okay.
So that's just how it works. So
I
you
will-
might want to follow both.
I will concatenate the ones off that already passed.
Yep.
Because, you know, I will put a timestamp on, and I'll try to get
So-
all of them. How's that?
So the ones that passed the House this term
Yep,
now are going to the Senate to pass.
Yeah.
So they haven't cleared anything yet.
right.
So,
The one that passed the Senate.
and the ones that passed the Senate are coming to us, so they haven't cleared any hurdles yet. So they're still active.
So it looks like we're gonna do B, and I'll start working on it, if everybody's okay.
And when it's on the table,
Mhm.
can they pull it back for this session, or is it done for this session and they could bring it back the next time you
So a
meet?
bill that's on the table can be pulled back at any point during the session. Once the session is over and there's a new election, all those bills die. They all die on the table. So like, for example, if the bills we have on the table right now,
Yep.
when the election in 2026, right, yeah, comes up, the bills that are on that table will die,
Okay,
and they'll start fresh again.
okay,
But they'll stay on this, so in 2026, the bills that we put on the table will still be there. But after the election in November, they will not be there anymore.
okay.
That makes sense.
So it's by 2 years, not 1 year.
It's by 2 years on table.
Got it.
Yep. It's by term, because everybody starts fresh
That makes
in the
sense,
new
yeah.
election. So everybody gets sworn in again, everybody starts fresh. So, you know, when we get sworn back in, it's a new term. All the bills are new, everything's new.
I like this.
Okay?
And I think,
Yeah.
I think that the key words
Yeah, no.
and that should come from the subcommittees.
Oh, yeah, no, no, yeah.
I don't think that each of us should go and throw in keywords.
Well, I
think
have to disagree, I'll tell you why.
Oh,
Said
why?
Doug
Um,
went and spoke at the
So Ron,
Hmm?
I wanna do it for individually, because if you want to attend a meeting, you might wanna discuss that with Ron, your subcommittee may not want to. So I
Hmm?
don't mind running individual reports, I'll run the ones for the committee, if the committee says, I just want wastewater,
Mm-hmm.
I'll run a wastewater, and I'll give it, you know, like, that committee, because there's distribution list.
Okay,
But if Ray says he wants to know about pipe sizes, and they're passing that. By the way, there's some interesting stuff, like
There is. Mm-hmm.
one of those electric vehicles cannot now park in commercial slots. And I'm
Right.
thinking, I would have loved to have been at that session in LY, but there's all sorts of really interesting stuff in
There
there
is.
to discuss. So it's up to you, I mean, if somebody wants an individual report, I mean, more than happy.
All right.
If a committee wants it, I'll do it for committee,
Yeah, let's try it and see where it goes.
Yeah.
okay?
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, thank you.
So I didn't do this last month, but that was bad.
Okay, cool.
I sounded like him 2 days before.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, roundtable discussion. We're getting toward the end of the meeting. We'll start with Ron. Anything, Ron?
Well, good for now.
Ray?
Yeah.
Jeff?
For now.
Good, thank you.
Martha?
I'm fine, thank you.
Yeah.
John? Cool.
Kirsten?
Cases.
Do you have a minute after?
No public comment. We have nobody from the public. But we did fulfill our goal of having before and after the meeting. So our next meeting is May 6th. It says March on the agenda, but it's May 6th, Tuesday. And we'll see everybody there. Take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Jeff?
Second?
I get that in my paste button, so I have to use that.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.